All right, well, how about the fourth one? So we've done three. Here's the fourth one. Science cannot explain the origin of consciousness. And so we talked a little bit about this, I think, 4 episodes ago at
Yeah,
this point. So
chapters ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we talked about this a little bit, but he makes the case a little bit stronger here. And again, he's saying why theism can explain this better than science can. Well, various features of human person, consciousness being among them, have provided very serious problems for scientific naturalism. But consciousness is easily explained given theism. Given naturalism, there's just no place to put consciousness. Well, it's just this thing that the brain does. It's fizzing chemicals. Okay, then am I really held responsible for my actions because it's just fizzing chemicals and I just fizz at a different degree than you do, right? So you can't hold me responsible as a serial killer. It's just the way that my chemicals fizz. And so who's to say which one of us is right or wrong? Now you can say might makes right and you can have an intentionality of the will that way, but that's not what we talk about when we talk about things like justice or holding people responsible or even what the purpose of laws is for. Well, given naturalism, there's just no place to put the consciousness. So the naturalist either has to say one, it has to say that these things like feeling of pain just aren't what they seem to be from the first person introspective, and instead they are actually physical things, or else two, they have to deny that they're real in the first place. Consciousness does not really exist. Well, look, you can be a Buddhist and still be a naturalistic scientist here.
Right. So either consciousness is not consciousness, at least from our first person introspection viewpoint, or consciousness doesn't exist. Those are your options if you're
Right.
a naturalist.
Right. But if we reject naturalism and the strictly physicalist ontology, the view of reality, it implies and accept the common sense view of the way things are, we can perilously close the embracing of theism. So it seems to make more sense that theism allows us to have consciousness, where just this idea of purely a naturalistic scientific explanation would void even bringing that up. The implications of that are just too much for people to take a bite of. If you do that, well, then you have other factors involved. Again, this is like the idea of not believing that there are other minds, but then writing a book to tell other people that they are in other minds. Who are you writing that book to? You're just being the only brain in the vat, and you're just kind of playing with yourself
Right. And who pays you for the book?
there. Right.
So he gives us reasons why he thinks that science cannot explain the origin of mental states. Several of them here. So first, it's the uniformity of nature. He says on a naturalistic depiction of matter, it is brute, mechanical, physical stuff. That's it. Right. And the emergence then of consciousness, he tells us, seems to be a case of getting something from nothing. Right. So you have this brute, mechanical, physical stuff, and then boom, consciousness springs from nothing. Right. So he says, how can like causes produce radically different effects? What are the like causes? Well, these brute, mechanical, physical stuff, those are like causes. How can then this radically different effect, consciousness, comes out of it? He says the appearance of the mind is therefore utterly unpredictable and inexplicable from the naturalistic perspective.
Right. And there are other things implied here too. Like how about the nature of beauty? Well, the fact that there are things like pleasing factors. Well, those are just chemical responses. Of finding a baby cute is a evolutionary imperative so that you don't kill your own kids, right? Which is a legitimate suggestion made within the confines of the scientific community of why babies are cute. It's not just the fact that we recognize things like beauty, or how about music? Music has both a mathematical component to it, but also a beauty aspect to it. And so why do we find one tune beautiful, and then when I play the piano, it shows that there is such a thing as beauty and not beauty in the world there. So there are other things of this mental state that come into play here.